Next week we're going to have a show. Hey, the conventions, the Republican conventions next week. So on that momentous occasion, Tony and I will be speaking. Tony Macklin and I will be speaking early next week about political films. So that'll be a special show coming up next week, where Tony and I chew the fat on political films. So let me ask you guys first, great political films. Me personally, I'm a huge fan of political conspiracy thrillers of the 70s. That's my favorite subgenre.
Yeah,
so all of those are great to me in varying degrees. But you guys, politics, the world of politics and film, what strikes you?
Well, I mean, I would go with like Bob Roberts, The Candidate, All the President's Men. I mean, The Parallax View. But there is one movie that for this political season, it is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but we can't not talk about Jonathan Demme's remake of The Manchurian Candidate. For no other reason that Meryl Streep's performance is based on Hillary Clinton to it. Whether you want to, it was popular at the time that's who her performance was based on, it really is. I mean, it's not a good film. I mean, it's a really, I'm sorry, I think it's a bad remake, as was The Trouble with Charlie. Let's remake that movie. I don't know what Jonathan Demme was thinking during these times, but we have to really we have to kind of talk about it, because it was, 12 years ago, that's all anybody was talking about when that movie came out. Frank Rich included. He was the first one. And never, Frank Rich's op-ed in times, it's been a long time since this is the most partisan movie ever released by a studio. It might not have been the partisan they were looking for, because Meryl Streep was essentially playing a Hillary Clinton in the movie.
Well, I mean, that movie came out with a thud. I remember watching that on opening day, and it didn't capture me at all.
No, it didn't. I mean,
which is unusual for Jonathan Demme. But The Candidate, Redford, The Candidate still holds up, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone. I mean, he plays an idealist, really. So I don't know if that would be so much true nowadays. You'd like to think so.
Well,
but it does.
Let's be more clear about it. He plays an idealist that has to continually compromise until he doesn't know who he is anymore. So I think that happens quite a bit now.
I think people are savvier about what politics is when they go in it, and they go in it because they are. I don't know though. But it does seem.
Bob Roberts though is like.
It might have seemed realistic back then in the 70s. Today, it feels like Frank Capra in a way, The Candidate.
Because I don't feel that way at all.
I don't feel that way.
I think it's a dark movie.
I think The Candidate works very strongly. Look, guys. I mean, if you really want to know, we had pitched on the movie when it came out, but the Brad Pitt movie, Killing Them Softly, it doesn't get any more political than that movie. Forget that it's a gangster movie based on a George C. Higgins book. The way Andrew Dominic filmed that movie, I'm sorry, that's your election movie this year. Killing Them Softly really is the movie about 2016. It doesn't get any more political than that. And I'm not just meaning that the speech about Obama at the end that closes the movie, the way that the machinations of the mob and everything, you could be usually talking about just the machinations of any political party, the Democrats or the Republicans. It's, how shall I say it? That movie is the summary of what this year is about. I want my cut. And I want my cut is really the theme of the Republicans and the Democrats. It doesn't matter who.
That's what I mean. I mean that's the part of Redford's character in The Candidate that I think is outdated.
Yeah.
Because I think when people go into politics, they know exactly why they go into it, and they're not completely closed-eyed to the realities of what that system is.
Yeah, I mean.
Now I still like The Candidate. Redford used to be a great political filmmaker. Now he's making Pete's Dragon. So.
Well, I mean, that's the way it goes.
You gotta go where the money is, I guess. You gotta follow the money.
For me, the great political movies are, of course, I'm not talking about political movies that say anything about where we are today. I'm not putting that in the. I don't think that every political movie has to say things about where we are. So I just take them as movies that are about politics. So for me, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington will always be there as one of the high benchmarks. Yes, it's Capricorn, but it's
I like
some
Capricorn.
of the best.
I like that Capricorn. I like that.
Well, I didn't coin that, but it is great Capra-esque filmmaking, and I think that it speaks to just the general battle between a newcomer trying to do the right thing and being faced with a political machine trying to just go after the cash. Nashville, I still think, rings out as a great political movie. I remember seeing Nashville on the big screen for the last time. I haven't seen it since. During the Ross Perot election.
Oh yeah.
That period, and that movie really sang out during that period because you had this. It has this, the truck going through for the third party candidate that everybody's tub thumping for in the movie, Hal Philip Walker. And that just sort of, wow, this is a movie that could have been made today. Of course, I'm talking about in the 90s, it felt that way. It still feels, fresh, and even though it's a movie about the music industry as well, it still feels, radically political. Going to movies even before that, though, things like 7 Days in May, the John Frankenheimer movie, which I think in some ways is a better movie than Manchurian Candidate.
I would go with you there just because I feel more is at stake in that movie. I don't ever feel in the Manchurian Candidate, in the original one, even with Frank, I don't even think there's a lot at stake. I think in 7 Days in May, there's a sense of grave danger to the country and the world.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what makes it better and more exciting. Being There, I think, is still a great.
It's such a great
film.
movie, being there because it's both gentle and acerbic. And how many people can do that? I mean, what a great tonality
it
to
definitely
achieve
walks. Yeah, it definitely walks that fine line between. It's always a somewhat cynical movie, but because of the gentleness of its main character and the fact that he doesn't even know that he's, that he doesn't even know the position he's put himself in. There's just something about that character that and that performance that really soothes you.
And I think that Being There and A Face in the Crowd are two movies that are probably most prominent in terms of contrast to today. That come to my mind.
Absolutely.
Viva Zapata with Brando is also another one there that I would have to. It's not one that we talk about. Obviously, we don't talk about it that much, but there are scenes in that movie which I think are very political. You can't talk about politics without bringing up, Kaczynski's being there. I mean, it's just the nature of the movie. I mean, let's go with Network, too. Network is another one that you have to talk about. There are a lot, and we don't see these movies. We don't see movies like this being made anymore. I think
the political movie is a casualty in recent years. That's why when I was talking to what's his name from Turner Classic Movies, Mankiewicz, and he said, "Oh, I think political movies are doing great." I was like, "What?
Really? Where are they?"
What are we talking about? The Ides of March, the one that George Clooney did a couple of years ago with Ryan Gosling.
He mostly talked about George Clooney. Like George Clooney could still make a political movie. And my point to Mankiewicz, because his lineage is in legendary Hollywood and politics. That's his lineage. So it stood to reason that I'd ask him about the state of political films. And he said, "No, I think political films are doing great." And I said, "I don't think they're doing great because I think people are scared to make a political film because the second you make a political film, you're alienating half your audience right off the bat. It can't be
right.
That's it.
I mean,
and he said
I
think that's a stupid argument. I mean, people are still going to get 20 million eyes in front of them. So why do they need 40? And I said, you're saying that the studios don't want 40 million eyes on them on their movie? They just want 20 million? That's a stupid argument that you're making. We could not reach an agreement. I didn't see why he didn't understand what I was trying to say.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of the political movie. On a smaller scale, on an independent scale, there are still political movies being made, but on a very small scale, and they're usually documentaries, like The Best of Enemies or something.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
generally it's a documentary that's political now.
It's really sad that the only major movie I could come up with is a mediocre George Clooney directed movie, The Ides of March, which is, as we talked about several years ago, was a disappointment.
I mean, you could also add into that also George Clooney, Good Night and Good Luck, as an entry into that. I mean,
that's a decade ago.
Yeah. To me, I mean, the last really great political movies were done at the end of the 90s with, and I'm talking about narrative films. I loved Primary Colors, Mike Nichols' film about the Clinton campaign, and especially loved Election and Susan Ruth.
I mean, and Wag the Dog.
And Nixon's good. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That was the last great era for him.
And The Contender.
Yeah,
Eddie Murphy and The Distinguished Gentleman. I mean, come on.
I mean, I'll give you that compared to what we have today. I'll give you The Distinguished Gentleman. I'll throw that bone to you.
And let me just bring up a couple more, and then we can move on. I can sense that we want to move on, but. The 50s was a great era. The 50s and the 60s were great eras for these kind of movies, especially the early 60s, which brought us, of course, Manchurian Candidate, but also brought us things like Advise and Consent from Otto Preminger, or probably the movie that's probably most germane to our discussion since the conventions are coming up, is Franklin Schaffner's The Best Man from '64 with Henry Fonda. Actually, Henry Fonda's also in Advise and Consent as well. But that's about The Best Man is about two presidential candidates combating each other to get the nomination at the convention. So, and I don't think that they even mentioned what party they're in that movie. But things like that, or things like Point of Order, the great Emile D'Antonio documentary about the downfall of Joseph McCarthy, that condenses weeks of the Army McCarthy hearings down to a manageable 90 minutes, and it makes it very, very exciting. And finally, possibly the greatest political filmmaker of all time, I would say, certainly in modern times, is Kostas Gavras, the Greek filmmaker who made most famously won an Oscar for writing Missing, the movie about the overthrow, the coup in Chile, and the brutal Allende regime, and how it affected a few Americans there. But also Z, which is possibly, I would put that as maybe my number one, even though it's not a movie that takes place in America, but I would put that as my number one greatest political movie, and because it's
bring up a great filmmaker who I watched his most recent film last week, Capital. Which I think everyone should kind of watch, just because it's about the financial system.
Yeah,
it's about banks, and I just think he does such a good job. I mean, he
did a very good job with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, but you watch that movie and you're just like, my God, there's no hope.
Is that the one with Gabriel Byrne?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very good movie. But he also made a movie back in 2002 called Amen about the Germans in the Second World War. That is very good, which I think a lot of people, that went under the radar too. I mean, it's not that he's a great political filmmaker. He's just one of the great filmmakers in general that's still making movies, that into his old age is still making movies. So yes, you can.
Yeah, but he's always been firmly. He's been kind of single-minded in exploring political themes, though. I mean, that's his thing, right?
Kind of. He also made a movie. I'm still got to watch it, called The Axe, which is based on a Donald Westlake novel about downsizing in an American company that he made, and I've still been wanting to watch that. He's one of these filmmakers that consistently, I think, puts out good work. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. I mean, he's working
socially conscious.
He's consistent. And it goes with that whole thing, that filmmakers after the age of 60 don't do anything good. Well, he's another one that proves that's absolutely wrong. I mean, he's still making great films. Another filmmaker like that was Sidney Lumet, who made one of the greatest movies. His last movie is actually one of those truly great movies, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. So, and that's not a political movie per se, but it's still a very good movie. But Costa Gavras, Dean, I mean, you can't get much better than Z. I mean, if we're talking about, he did State of Siege in that same period. State of Siege and The Confession. Both of those are extremely are in the wheelhouse of Z in terms of their emotional effect and their radical views. Yeah, and don't forget Bertolucci. I mean, we can't have this conversation without 1900, Revolution. So even The Last Emperor, I would even throw in The Dreamer.
The Conformist, of course.
The Conformist, yes, definitely. That was the first one I wanted to make. Yeah, I mean, you can't. Bertolucci is making superb political films his whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd that these are all foreign filmmakers that are still making political films.
Can I bring up one film? I think you guys might have seen this years ago. All the King's Men with Broderick Crawford, who was directed by...
That's the granddaddy as far as American films go. I mean, and
Robert Lawson.
I mean, let's be very honest. I mean, we have the... I mean, it's an insult to Huey Long at this point, but we do have a Huey Long-like character who's going to be a presidential candidate. So, I mean...
And then, of course, Blaze, which I think is an equally great film about stripping.
It's a great stripping film.